everyone, it's Jeremy. Welcome back to the Slowest Blitz, where we are playing Asphodel. It is turn 25? Question mark? It's also storming, so that might pop up on the mic, or it might kill this recording, so we'll see. Anyways, we got a bunch of stuff. Let's jump into it. This is our first real turn of really starting to try to go at it with some of the remote site searching that we have gathered up on our pathway, right? So we've got some dark knowledge, and a at the end of the rainbow, as well as a couple of other little things here or there. So we've got an at the end of the rainbow, and Icton found nothing. We did Call of the Wild. We did fire off 2 scrying pools, one at Sylvania and then one at Man's other nearby fort, so that we can kind of have a better specific read on each of those locations as Man's army is kind of like in the field and moving about. So we've got that going on. We did a dark knowledge in the Forest of the Lost, found nothing, and then we did a dark knowledge in Icton and found a well of pestilence, which is good to know. That's, you know, happy to get the never really happy to be like, yay, well of pestilence, right? But it is death income. And of all the nations to find wells of pestilence, we are one of the nations that is the least bothered by it, right? Because wells of pestilence spread diseases as your people are moving through them. Our people are either undead, who don't care about diseases, or they are living units that have recuperation. So there are a few instances, obviously, right? If we have some sages or other, you know, non-recuperation based units, we'll have to keep an eye out. But because of the placement of Icton, this is pretty unlikely to ever be a big issue for us. So we just get the net income of death, and that's pretty nice. We did a targeted Call of the Wild at Glistening Wood this turn. Let's see if we get lucky. So, the reason we targeted Glistening Wood, after like 2 turns of just firing off fucking random Calls of the Wild, because we were like, yeah, Call of the Wild, woo, let's spend our gems on this. We were like, okay, hold up, we're gonna hold our horses, especially since Man's just countering us with Calls of the Wild. But the reason why we are doing a targeted one this turn is because we spotted this lady, right? So this is a Crone of Avalon, slow to recruit, powerful mage, very weak defensively, just like a little human boomin'. No protections, no real defenses, yada yada yada. And we know that Man's Bless is not going to turn this thing into like a super combatant or anything like that. And these things cost 350, 450, something like that. A pretty extreme chunk of money and time, considering they're slow to recruit. So sniping a unit like this is going to be a very big deal, especially since he's got this out in the field, so he's obviously site searching nature glamour, right? And, you know, an H1, which can get you some nice little pearls here or there. So sniping something like this is a pretty big deal. Let's see if it's not on retreat. So a pretty classic move, right, in multiplayer, or just while playing Dominions period, is if you're going to be site searching with your mages just running around out in the field, a lot of people will put them on retreat, right? If there's a bad event, or if you get randomly attacked or anything like that, putting your mage on retreat is very likely for them to route safely. But if you don't give them any commands, they are likely to just sit there and cast. Now, it's possible that he gave them commands. Oh. Gotta mute the... Nope. Discord. And someone's mowing. It's storming? I'm getting discorded and someone's mowing. It's people are like, no, don't record right now. Mute for a few hours. Sorry. So it's possible that man has actually scripted this, right? Because we've seen a blessing, we've seen blur. These are defensive scripts, but not going to be that good. Enlarge doesn't even get off, and it's great. The vast majority of those wolves, you know, because it's a remote spell, you're not going to get to script these things. A large amount of those wolves went immediately for that crone. Great snipe. Fantastic snipe. 465 gold. Damn, those things are expensive. But they are incredibly good mages. They're also spell singers, which I think is a really cool ability in Dominions. Not very many nations have spell singers as an option, but so they're slower to cast, but they take less fatigue to cast. And it's just a really cool kind of like mechanic in my personal opinion. This is nice. This is a fucking steal. Sniping a slow to recruit 465 gold crone here, it is definitely not gonna feel good on man's side. So pretty happy about that. We've lost a lot of units on the march, so that's not great, but just kind of is what it is. And then we have a bunch of different raiding attacks back and forth. So we have been attacked in Iron Peaks by a couple of Knights of Avalon, a couple of monks, etc., etc. And we've got nothing there. No big deal. So we kill a wolf for our trouble. Very nice. We have been attacked in Lovendalen. So this is, you know, a former Call of the Wild, just moving around now. And we actually have a bunch of mannequins here. So this will be a easy victory for us. But probably unable to snipe the werewolf. Yeah, the werewolf gets off the field. It's really nice to snipe those werewolves because a goodly portion of the value of Call of the Wild, or some of the hidden value of Call of the Wild, is, again, getting those werewolves back to a safe location and then just having them sit there and summon allies, because they'll summon 3 wolves per turn. And those wolves are very useful for a lot of things. Very useful for patrol chaff, very useful to just, you know, gum up the works if you've got, you know, 150 of them sitting on a side, which, you know, obviously that's a lot when you're going 3 wolves at a time. But if you fired off 5 or 6 casts of Call of the Wild and you get all those werewolves back to a single location, you can get up to pretty high numbers pretty quickly if they're summoning 3 at a time per turn, right? So, would have been nice to get that werewolf, but we do not get him. Then we attack in Namor, and we have our 2 little raiding parties that we put together, our 2 little stealth raiding parties. And these are going to be able to take on most province defense. Even a fair, like, 10, 15 province defense, depending on the PD type. These guys will be able to do very well with it. They're high defense skill. These guys are obviously have some pips. So, high base defense skill, a little bit of berserking, right? So once they finally do get hit by PD, they'll hit much harder. They'll be easier to hit, but they'll have some more protection, and they'll be very killy. So these guys are very good raiders, but not if you're not fighting PD. Motherfucker. That's gonna be a lot of gold. Damn. So this is the force that was on Vaclez, and I'll talk more about this later, but this is where I really start to question some things, because I'm like, didn't I fucking check this? How the fuck did he get here? So we'll talk more about that in a second. These guys are gonna get slaughtered. We'll kill some wolves, but everything else super dead. yeah, we lose all 19 centaurs. We do lose one of the centaur hierophants. One does successfully retreat, so that is nice. But that's 170 gold on this hierophant. 35 per centaur warrior. So we're looking at, what, over 800 gold here lost? That hurts. That's not an insubstantial amount. We killed 35 wolves. Who gives a fuck on that particular front? That's not great. It's not like an earth-shattering loss, but it does hurt. In the turn that we got the snipe on the Crone of Avalon, we get slapped back, and it's kind of like it deflates the situation, right? So it's like, oh man, I was like super excited, you know, and then this happens. Fuck. At the end of the day, sniping the slow to recruit, super expensive cap only mage is probably more punishing, right? But it's not just the gold loss here for us that hurts. It's also that, again, these were intended to get into man's back line, start to sow some havoc, right? Start to swing things into a situation that would cause it to be obviously painful for man to stay in this war with me. And so far, obviously the snipe against the crone is really great, but other than that, we're not doing a lot to make this painful for man. So we're gonna need to change that. We had that happen. We also get attacked in Bycliff. And this is, I think, an interesting attack. This is a daughter of Avalon. I assume that this was intentionally done, but it does seem odd to me, right? Because this is a stage of the game where, like, 10 research matters, you know? And this particular mage with no equipment, no gems to do things like swarm or anything like that, you know, she's not going to be especially effective against anything more than 1 PD. And while we do basically just have 1 PD here, we're also Asphodel. So our 1 PD nets us a caster, and we're pretty consistently spawning mannequins in our dominion. So instead of just 3 units here, one of which could just be a shitty little commander, we've got a caster and mannequins to help bolster up the overall force. So she comes in, she's going to do a blur. That's a very useful spell on herself, right? Blur is going to do a -2 penalty to attack, but she only has 9 defense. And then she does Eagle Eyes, which feels very weird to me. Mirror images. Mirror image with blur makes sense. But she's not a very high glamour mage, so she's not going to get very many mirrors out of that. Did the mirror get popped initially by something? She cast it twice. Weird. Maybe the mirror got popped by something. And then she tries to poison touch. So I'm not sure that this was intentional, right? It's very possible that it was. A mage like that could be scripted to take on 1 PD fairly reliably, right? And we don't actually kill her. She's relatively cheap in the long run, but I kind of do question whether or not this was done intentionally or not. So yeah, I don't know. Kind of a wash. We rout her, but she probably retreated safely, so kind of no big deal. We got another Pythium, Vanarus Pythium battle, except it's not really a battle. It's some Blackhawks and a commander versus nothing, because Pythium did not put PD back on their capital, really, when they knocked him off. So yeah, pretty easy peasy. Vanarus just poking, trying to see what's going on, and that's that. So we also get attacked in Glistening Wood. And this is just some monks coming in. But we actually have we moved. Oh! We didn't move anything. This is a freebie. Oh, I love it when this happens. So we targeted Glistening Woods with the Pack of the Wild, or Call of the Wild. We sniped the crone, took the province. He was moving monks here, so we get the free snipe on those 2 monks immediately afterwards. Another 70 gold there, and 1 turn worth of recruitment for the both of them, so not a big deal, but it is nice when that happens. We cured a disease, patrolled some troops. So, okay. Things are happening. Let's talk about some things that are happening, right? So, in the game state that we are currently in right now, we find ourselves with a greatly diminished opponent, and then we find ourselves with a very strong opponent, not overly strong, but a very strong opponent that is geared well to fight us, right? Like, incentivized to get a lot of monks, and it's not at a bad cost for them. They want them anyways, right? So some nations, if you have to buy your priests, you're like, fuck, I don't want to buy priests. They're not doing anything much for me except helping me kill undead and helping me manage my dominion, right? But man's like, hell yeah, I want a bunch of monks because that lets me do divine research. I'm super happy about that, right? And then Longbowmen are a really good matchup. They've got wolves for chaff versus our chaff. They've got good magic to help combat the magic that we are utilizing against them. And then, of course, Knights of Avalon are crazy. So, these motherfuckers in Namor, right? Like, I moved from Bycliff into Namor. I was like, we'll ping Namor on our way with that stack of centaurs because he shouldn't be able to really have anything enough there to matter. Or if he does, it should be at a good exchange rate. But he moved all the way off of Viclez through Vongar and back into Namor. And I remember checking this, and I remember being like, yeah, that's 29 fucking movement. He's not getting there. And I remember even going into the characters select, or into the, pretender situation, and taking a look and being like, yeah, these motherfuckers are map move 24. They're not gonna make it. They've got forest survival, but there's no forest here, right? So they're not gonna reduce that cost. And truth be told, I'm not 100% sure how they fucking got here. But they did. And this is kind of like a reoccurring theme with me fighting man. For example, I learned in fighting man in this game, right? If you think back to, 7, 8 turns ago, when Man and Ulm initially started the attacks, right? I owned Eterol, Iron Peaks. I owned all of this. Man hit all of this in a single turn. So I learned, apparently these motherfuckers. So the knights are not stealthy. Unicorns are stealthy. But I learned that you can. I guess prior to playing this, I'd always seen units that weren't flying or weren't stealthy so rarely have enough map move to be able to get through multiple provinces, to be able to, say we're in Eagle Reach Mountains, to be able to hit both Eterol and hit Sylvania at the same time, right? Hit Iron Peaks, hit Namor, hit Lovendalen. Did he hit Lovendalen? I think he hit all of these. Basically, hit a whole bunch of fucking turns. So, or a whole bunch of provinces in a single turn. It just really, these motherfuckers are fast. Really fast. In playing this game and fighting against man, I have had to kind of train myself into this concept that these guys are more like flyers than they are like heavy cav. They're so quick, and they're up here, down here, up here, down here, right? In what feels like an instant. Truly amazing and awe-inspiring and terrifying, and I hate it. So, let's talk about theaters of war. We've got the Phaeacian theater. Phaeacia is down to 3 provinces, Nam, Vaclez, and Banded Hills. Man has moved down, and there's nothing to say that man isn't going to just bounce back and forth. But if man bounces back and forth, they're not going to be able to defend both locations with one stack. And as was pointed out previously, right? Like, fortunately, the monks, while pretty damn quick, 16 map move is no joke. It's not 24 map move, and they don't have force survival, right? So these guys can't move around as quickly as the Knights of Avalon, which means he either has to keep large stacks of monks in different locations and position Knights of Avalon with them, or he has to slow down the movement speed, right? So we've got that whole situation going on, but we can't, regardless of whether or not he jumps back and forth to defend Phaeacia, we can't just let Phaeacia sit. So we've got to try to take some fights. So we have completed Conjuration 5. That was our goal, or specifically Phao. So we are moving a large force back into Black Harbor to threaten Vaclez. We've kind of stacked things up here. Obviously, we have our big Black Centaur stack. We've got a bunch of Minotaur warriors. We've got things like Group's Barkskin firing. We've got some other spells thrown in here as well. Some quick roots, some regrowth, etc., etc. We also have Howl stacked here, right? So I think Howl is going to be extremely useful for both Phaeacia and man. The issue is that we might have a very limited window in which Howl is useful for man, because man, as shown with Call of the Wild, has plenty of nature and can probably, depending on what they decide to do with their research, just counter Howl us in a few turns. So we need to make things effective and quick. So what we are doing with this movement is kind of two-pronged. We're threatening Vaclez, but we also want to pull this stack in Namor and say, hey, look, you need to decide on defending Vaclez or defending Sylvania with this big stack, because you're not going to be able to do both against us. So depending on where his big stack is next turn, and we're trying to keep eyes on it, right? We've got a bunch of scouts around. We've got the scrying pool, so we should be able to kind of like gauge where they end up. Depending on where he ends up, we'll pull the trigger towards Vaclez, or we'll probably pull the trigger towards Sylvania. Potentially, right? So the other situation here is that Vaclez is sitting at 500 wall integrity, and we have just under 500. So it's gonna take 2 turns to pop. Obviously, part of the reason why we were bringing up this huge stack of mannequins is both for Chaff to fight man, but also for siege strength. Unfortunately, these guys can't go straight across to Black Harbor, so they're going to jump down to Illidar, because they should be able to go from Illidar to Vaclez, right? So next turn, if we pull the trigger, we should be able to move all of them onto Vaclez. The issue is these fucking Orichalcum guards and Colossi heavy infantry actually have a fair amount of siege defense, so even with the extra, what is that going to be? 100 and 150-ish siege strength, that's probably not going to be enough to one turn pop Vaclez, which means that man will potentially be able to respond. So kind of a little under where we want to be on that, unfortunately, but it is what it is. We can't really do anything about it. We are also going to be attacking Nom this turn with our little stack of wolves and long dead. And we're going to be attacking into Pugria with a little stack of wolves. I kind of expect this to work, right? I don't expect Phaeacia to have put very much PD over here, but this might not work. Man has been putting a fair amount of PD into his stuff. The situation is, though, is it's possible that in this alliance with Phaeacia, man's like, yeah, look, I'm not going to take your stuff. That's still yours, so I'm not going to put PD in it. So maybe we'll be able to take it with a small amount of wolves, but maybe not. There's also, does Phaeacia actually stay here, or do they move around, right? In us moving to kind of like check Vaclez, another big part of our movement is being able to defend Phaeacia. So we've got a little bit going back and forth, trying to see what we can do about this. I'd also love to get into the water and take Dagor, but that's going to take a lot of mannequins to be able to take on those Shamblers, and we don't have the ability to dedicate that right now. I did think there was a moment where I was like, hold up, let's just chunk this Carrion commander and the 120 whatevers into Dagor. They would probably win, but the issue is even against just 20 Shamblers, these guys really are crap underwater. They're not good at all. They're not good, period. Underwater, they're so much worse. So they would probably, trying to take on 20 Shamblers, they would probably lose 30 to 40, if not more, right? Which means we would have that much less for the actual fight. This shit can wait, right? Like that can wait. So we've got that going on. We are still doing some recruitment. We're gonna get another Panic Apostate and some Jade Maidens in Phaeacia. That's a lot of gold to be dedicating. That's 420 gold. Each of these is 45 gold. This is kind of rough, and we are starting to feel the pinch on income, even though, right, like we have taken a lot of land from Phaeacia, and that's very good for us, right? We are starting to feel the pinch from lowered population and lowered income in our heartlands. So whereas this would probably be closer to, like, 4K income if we were playing a non-pop kill nation, and we'd be just flush, we'd be rolling in the dough. Instead, we are starting to feel that kind of like, ooh, this hurts. We can't buy all of the things that we want to buy. And that's going to get worse. The longer we stay in this war, the worse that is going to be. And these Phaeacian lands are going to be required to keep us kind of like going. So, got that going on over in Phaeacia. Over in the Man territory, there's not a lot going on in actual attacks or movements for Man. Again, this big stack of Knights of Avalon, if we were to throw everything that we had in Asphodel at this point at Sylvania, we would probably be fine. But keep in mind, oh shit, so we got fucking lucky, right? We got 3 death, 4 nature. Our other Panic Apostate is also 4 nature, which is pretty nice. So keep in mind, again, this is pre-patch, so we don't have Black Minotaurs yet. We don't have some of the extra tools that they added in the patch, and things like Carrion Fortress are way harder to do without the right random roll. So risking things is very difficult for us to do. Well, not difficult for us to do, but it can risk a lot, especially considering we have such good research right now that it's kind of like, why would we do that, right? So I do think if we pulled everything from Asphodel and threw it at Sylvania, we would probably win. But I think we would win with a shit ton of losses, right? Like, it would be a lot of dead stuff on our side, and I don't know that we would be able to persecute a continued engagement on his interior, even just against archers and landless knights. So that's going to be an issue. Instead, most of what we're doing this turn is just continuing to roam around, pick up units, defend units, move and consolidate mannequins. The longer it goes, the higher our research gets, but the less our income gets. We're on a very tight timeline. We've got a very kind of like difficult balancing act to do here. We do need to pull the trigger. I want to see what happens next turn with man. We don't have... Yeah, we're more sages. We don't have a lot of recruitment. Another Panic Apostate. More Black Centaurs. I think it is at this point in the game, and I'm pretty sure this happens for a couple of reasons, and for a while. It is at this point in the game that, because of what we've run into with man, I make a decision that I don't know is the right decision, and is probably... How to word this? It felt like the right decision. It probably wasn't the right decision, and it's going to have long-lasting repercussions. So, we are finishing up Alt 5 this turn. Alt 5 is going to get us, namely, Mother Oak, right? That's the really big thing for us. There's a lot of other really good stuff in here, just period. But even for us, there's a lot of really good stuff in here. But the real reason we are going for it is Mother Oak, right? We are not going to be able to cast Mother Oak. We need a Thistle Mace to be able to do it, or a incredibly lucky random. And the common strategy in Dom 5 would have been to go up to Construction 4 to get Thistle Maces, which at 500 research speed, very quick, right? Like, really easy to just pop up there in 2 or 3 turns, fire off Mother Oak, pre-turn 30, still pretty slow, right? Because we went Conjuration 5 first, but enough to get the job done. But because of the concern of having to fight man first, instead I make the decision to go for Enchantment 6. There's a lot of stuff on the way to enchantment that is really good for us, and we'll probably talk about it as we get there, right? As we get to each one. But the really big thing that we're looking for is Rigor Mortis, right? Rigor Mortis is one of those spells that if a enemy does not have an appropriate counter for it at the exact moment that you need that counter, it can switch games, right? It's much in the same vein as like Wailing Winds or something like that. It can really screw over a fight for a player, and we are one of those nations that has a pretty easy time of casting Rigor Mortis. Not as easy as some nations, but a decently easy time casting it, especially since we got fucking lucky with that Death 3, right? So, Rigor Mortis, if we can catch man with it. See, like, Howl is just this will probably help out, right? Rigor Mortis is if we catch man with this, we wipe 100 Knights of Avalon and we go he all the way to their capital, right? Type situation. So this isn't necessarily like a bad call, but this is a time investment, right? It's 1,300 for that level 6, and it's gonna take a few turns to even get to the level 5 to start working on the level 6. So this is probably, 6 or 7 turns away, which is a big investment on the concept of it's already turned 25. What's going to happen by the time we would even be able to cast that? And we're obviously our research is going to go up each turn, but we're going to lose money as that happens, and it's going to be more and more difficult to maintain that research lead if we cannot defeat Phaeacia, kill man, get out of this war, whatever the case may be, right? So this is a judgment call that may or may not break the game for us. I cannot underestimate the importance of getting into a full gem economy for Asphodel. You maintaining a gold economy for Asphodel is all but impossible. Like, in theory, you can conquer a neighbor and then just leave their lands, don't preach, don't put temples, etc., etc. But that makes defending that new territory even more difficult, and eventually it's very likely that you're going to end up spreading your dominion there and not very slowly, actually, pretty quickly, killing out the population. It's just do you save 10 or 15 turns of income before you do so, right? So moving into a full gem economy is extremely important for almost all pop kill nations. Asphodel is one of those kind of like on the sides that has a strange pathway to doing that and doesn't have as easy a time for doing it. So Mother Oak is really, really, really important for trying to get a... It's not like you can't do it without it, but it's incredibly important for getting a smooth transition into that concept of a full gem economy. Because if we have Mother Oak right now, right? 22 nature gems, that's a Carrion Lord every 2 turns. That is a lot of power. Carrion Lords are extremely strong. And I will hopefully admit that I think I kind of forget how strong they are in the concept of, well, we want to keep gems because we want to put Mother Oak up, but we're not going for Mother Oak. We're not going to be able to do that. But I also need to keep gems because I need to be able to put gems on people for things like Howl, etc., etc. But we're not actively fighting right now. And we're casting a Carrion Centaur. I should be summoning Carrion Lords right now. I will summon Carrion Lords eventually. I should be summoning... As soon as I made the decision to not go for Mother Oak, I should have either been like, okay, we're putting a fort in Shade Forest, or we're putting a fort in... I should have immediately been like, we're either dropping some forts, we're summoning 200 Carrion Centaurs, or we're starting to summon a Carrion Lord every 3 turns, right? I should have made one of those decisions, and I made none of those decisions. So we're gonna have to see how the next few turns go for us. In the meantime, we are getting some more Carrion Centaurs. That will be good for us. Having a shit ton of Carrion Centaurs, that's part of the moving into the full gem economy concept. But you kind of want to commit, right? In my opinion. If you want to get Carrion Centaurs, then get Carrion Centaurs. spend a single turn, right? Like, don't do it once a turn. Spend a single turn, dump all of your gems, because if you do that, you're gonna be reanimating, right? Instead of 3, 6, 9, 12 mannequins every single turn, you dump fucking what? We could easily do like 5 right now. That's immediately 15 additional mannequins every single turn, right? And that adds up, right? That's 150 mannequins in 10 turns. That's no joke. That matters, especially when you're getting special mannequins, right? So, kind of a lot of, I think, mixed decisions here based off of some of the things that have happened both in-game and out of game, but primarily in-game. So we'll see how the next couple turns turn out. You might also notice we're also doing a little dip in evocation. That's going to slow our time down even more. We are going down evocation specifically, I believe, for Shadow Bolt. So Shadow Bolt is a pretty decent combat spell, and the reason why I wanted to dip into evocation is if he comes for me right now, and I have Howl and he has Howl, then I don't know if we outright win, right? So I'm trying to look for portions of combat power that are easily available to me right in the very near future. Shadow Bolt is strong enough to do a fair chunk of damage. It's not Shadow Blast, right? Shadow Blast down at 5 is amazing. Does a massive amount of area, armor negating damage. But Shadow Bolt, right, also armor negating only an area of effect of 1, so it's, max gonna hit 2 knights. It does also have a magic resistance check for half, and those knights do have pretty damn good magic resistance, so this still might not be the best thing, but again, we're kind of grasping at straws because those Knights of Avalon are so kitted out in a particular manner that it's hard for us to come up with good strategies of killing them with mages, right? So obviously, right, like there are ways to kill them. It's just what's the easy access for us for those ways? And really right now it's just overwhelm them with numbers and hope that they don't kill the things that are actually going to kill them. And that's very difficult to do. Like I said, it's almost like a 5 or 6 to 1 ratio for mannequins to try to like really take them down. I've been actually doing, I'm rambling so fucking much here, but I've actually been doing a few more tests, trying to be like, okay, how fucking many mannequins do I fucking need for this? And I tested this actual like stack. I tested this stack against this stack, and I think I added in like a couple of knights or landless knights and some I think I put him up to like 15 monks or something like that. I basically tested the concept of what happens if I move on to Sylvania this turn and he patrols with everything that I can see here, and he fucking destroyed me. Like, I think I tested it like 5 or 6 times, and he destroyed me like 4 out of those times. It was kind of disturbing. I did play the concept of what happens if I had Howl, and that does kind of like really push it in my favor. If he counter howls, it just leads to a wash. But these Knights of Avalon, just the sheer amount of them kill so many mannequins. 1, 2, 3, 4. 8 in the first round because they'll lose the lance, right? And then 6 basically every turn after that. So I think I have to have some magic, some effective magic to be able to do the thing, to be able to kill them while they are either help fatigue them out, right? That's the concept of rigor mortis, or to kill them while they are bogged down by the mannequins. There was something else, or to there's a different idea I had, but I don't remember what it was. Yeah. It's just is a rough matchup. It's a very, very rough matchup. I did want to show off one particular thing. So is it in here? No, I think it's actually in Alt 5. So Alt 5, yeah, it's blood poisoning. So I think this is new to Dominion 6. Alt 5 has blood poisoning, and this is actually a really cool spell that I think Asphodel is really good at casting. And this would slaughter a bunch of people. But unfortunately, his Knights of Avalon are pretty much immune to this. Like, this would normally be a very good way to bop super elite units, because a lot of times people, especially in Dominion 6, right, it's hard to get all reses like you used to in Dom 5. You can still do it, it's just more costly. So you see less people going like really high poison resistance. They'll probably grab, like, if they're gonna get it, they'll probably grab like 5 instead, or if they grab the 10, they grab the 10, fine. But this is still enough to kind of like punch through that. But yeah, Knights of Avalon don't care. So I've rambled. It's clearly a rambly day. I'm probably going to try to record more of these. So yeah, this is probably going to be a bunch of really long videos. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like, commenting, or subscribing. It really helps me out. If you'd like to see me live, head over to my Twitch at twitch.tv/thedistanthorizon.